You can find him on Twitter at ESPN_McMahon. Band McMahon, 1/3 of the Hoop Collective, host of the hit show Howdy Partners on YouTube.
Show. I love to see it.
My man, Tim MacMahon, joining us here on the Get Right. Tim, what's going on?
Howdy, partners. I would say I'm at least like 40% of the Hoop Collective. Those other two guys. I'm 40. Wendy's probably 45, and then we'll give Bontemps that other, whatever. My math's not great, 15%.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, as long as you keep holding up your end of the bargain, we'll let them other two dudes, do what they do, I guess.
There you go.
Also, when it comes to math, the math that you have to know is CBA math.
That's right. Yeah, enjoy that
fine.
CBA math. That's right. That's right.
Okay. I know it well enough to discuss it and well enough to know that I'm not going to get down to the dollar because I'm sure to screw that up.
That's right. That's where I am as well. Obviously, I kind of want to delve into CBA, but before we get into
Hell
that,
no.
I kind of want
we
to.
want McMahon to stay on the line. Okay,
that's a great point.
That's what we want right now.
Seeing as the Texas Triangle is getting stronger, you're going to be traveling around these parts a lot more. Is that what's happening with your coverage of this upcoming season?
Well, listen, fellas, the team in our backyard is going to be awfully interesting, for better or for worse. So, Mavericks will still be priority number one. On the for worse scale, the Grizzlies will be a priority, starting with the 26th game of the season. I think you guys, even you fellas, can figure that math out. And then, honestly, I'm not quite sure what the ESPN Wemby plan will be. Certainly a possibility that we might have somebody there full time, which will not be me. If not, then I would be involved. So I will be roaming around some, but bad news for Mavs fans, I will be at the AAC more than anywhere else.
That's only bad news for those who don't know the greatness that is my man, Tim MacMahon. Well, let's just start there, Tim, because the latest on Kyrie Irving, we've seen multiple reports on who he is, who he isn't meeting with in Phoenix, not Phoenix. What's the latest when it comes to Kyrie Irving, his free agency plans, and what the Mavericks are trying to do to get him locked up pretty quick?
Listen, the Mavericks remain, I would say, optimistic. They feel like they've done everything they can to put themselves in position to sign him. And let's just be real honest about it. There are not other realistic alternatives. If Kyrie wants to meet with the Suns, that's great. Is he going to go play for the minimum? I mean, seriously? Like, that's not a realistic option. You go, well, what about a sign and trade? Fellas, this I do know about the new CBA math. If you do a sign and trade, you are hard capped at $172 million. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, add those up, you're already at $130 million change. You've got a roster to fill out. So what's Kyrie going to do? Is he going to take $15 million? I mean, so again, the Mavericks have treated him well. They've loved him up. You know, they feel like they have relationships with him, whether it's Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison, on down the line. And the simple fact of the matter is they can offer him significantly more money than anybody else. Now, there's going to be a little, give and take, tug of war, whatever you want to call it, as far as exactly how much of that money the Mavericks are willing to offer. And you have to be careful here because let's just call it like it is. Part of what you're doing in these negotiations as the Mavericks is trying not to make Kyrie feel like he's being disrespected, like he's being lowballed. The last thing you want is to owe Kyrie Irving $100-some-odd million and him be disgruntled. You can ask the Brooklyn Nets how that plays out. It's not pretty. So it's a very delicate situation, but the Mavericks are also trying to put together a team that has a chance. A team that has a chance to contend. If not immediately, certainly in the near future, and for obvious reasons. And part of that is they've got to try to protect that full mid-level as they have right now, which the way the math works, they can't go to a full max with Kyrie and still have that $12.4 million slot that, there's a chance they can get a really significant contributor with.
Now, Tim, I'm so glad that you brought up the human element of this because obviously when we talk about these types of transactions and such, that kind of gets left out. How prepared do you think the Mavs are to deal with the human element of team building and all of this? Because it seemed, at least to me from the outside looking at, one of the things that the Mavs have needed for a little time, probably since J.J. Barea left, was a little bit of an adult in the room. Like, how much are they considering those aspects of this with the gargantuan task that they have of just overhauling this roster?
I mean, absolutely. It's part of the consideration. And I would also make the point that it's one of, if not the primary strength for Nico Harrison. I mean, Nico is a guy who has relationships with players, with agents, with people throughout the league. And Nico is a guy who, part of the reason that he has strong relationships is he is known as a straight shooter. He's not a guy who has a reputation for blowing smoke up your butt. But one reason that Nico was so successful with Nike is because he's really good at not just managing people, but establishing relationships and dealing with people. And again, that's one of the things that was very attractive whenever they decided to give him the general manager job.
Tim MacMahon of ESPN joining us here on the Get Right with Reggie KG right here on 105 through the Fan. You reported as of 4 hours ago that the Mavericks intend to meet with Bruce Brown, new NBA champion, of course, with the Denver Nuggets, and an opportunity to sit down with him. What does that signal to you in terms of their chances with Bruce Brown and the opportunity to speak with him?
I mean, obviously there's strong mutual interest. Bruce Brown's going to have options. He's going to have suitors. I'll be honest with you, since this Harrison Barnes deal got done, I haven't been able to, I'm not going to say crunch the numbers. I haven't been able to touch base with Bobby Marks to see what the Kings have left. If the Kings have more than mid-level, that's certainly a possibility. There's been some discussion about Houston. I'm not going to totally rule that out, but the Lakers obviously have been in discussion, and other teams. I tell you what, though, I really think the toughest competition for Bruce Brown, and this is something that has changed recently, I think the toughest competition is, the pull of him to go back and defend a championship with the Denver Nuggets. And look, if it's just straight up about immediate dollars, then he's leaving Denver. But the math says, the rules say, the most they can offer him this year is $7.8 million. Full mid-level is 12.4. It's not real hard to figure that out, right? But the question is, will he do a Bobby Portis type of deal, right? Where Bobby Portis won a championship with the Bucks, took significantly less than market value to return there because they were limited, and then signed a 4-year deal for 40-some-odd million. In this case, Brown would probably be signing a 4-year deal in the 50s or 60s next summer with Denver should he go back. I can tell you, you saw Michael Malone at the parade, right?
That's right. That's right.
You can't leave that whole. Well, he made the same speech in the locker room soon after they won that championship. Nikola Jokic has been hitting him up. Jamal Murray's been hitting him up. Aaron Gordon. So I think he's really torn about leaving Denver right now, and that might be the stiffest competition.
Now, Tim, with the Mavericks, we obviously have seen the rumors that they were, discussing with the Suns the idea of Ayton. The big room is something that's been really lamented over the last season. How comfortable are they with the idea of the room as it looks right now, Lively, Holmes, McGee being what they go in with, or are they going to still aggressively focus on that as we get into free agency and maybe still looking for trades?
So the Ayton situation, there was a time that I thought the Mavericks would be aggressive to go after Ayton. That's not the case anymore. You saw the names that Stein reported. Essentially, it's a deal where the Mavericks are saying, hey, if we can get off a couple of contracts that we don't like, or actually a few contracts that we don't like, then sure, we'll do it. But they're not like hot and heavy after DeAndre Ayton. Now, don't get me wrong. If a deal gets done, they'll tell you how much they love him, but they'll be lying to you. So the Mavericks need a stopgap starting center. That's what they need right now, assuming that an Ayton deal doesn't happen. And look, I know Mavericks fans are down on this guy, but Dwight Powell is probably going to be that guy, okay? And it won't be for the $11 million he was making last year. It'll probably be for significantly less than that. But Dwight Powell's probably going to be back with the Mavericks. He'll probably be with the Mavericks long after he's done playing, just to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being the president on the business side even. But I think Dwight Powell would be a phenomenal fit for a stopgap starter / mentor to Derek Lively. Is he flawed? Yes. He's not a great rim protector. He's not a great rebounder. Those are the things the Mavericks want to improve. But can he be, a 15 to 20-minute part of the center rotation with Lively playing significant minutes, with Maxi Kleber getting a lot of the minutes when they decide to go a little bit smaller and spread the floor out? Yeah, Dwight can absolutely play that role. And again, I think one huge advantage is he's a guy who would be a phenomenal mentor for a 19-year-old center. Like, hey, you want to know how to play pick and roll with Luka Doncic? Dwight Powell can teach you some things about that. Dwight Powell can teach you how to be a pro, and he's not a guy who a lot of those situations, guys aren't really trying to be a mentor. They're trying to keep their minutes. I don't think that would be the case with Dwight Powell. I think he would be heavily invested in really trying to help this kid grow.
What else is on your radar when it comes to this team, Tim, now that we are about to set foot into NBA free agency that may not necessarily be on the radar that Mavs fans and people who are watching and cover this team need to be looking out for?
Well, obviously, if it's not Bruce Brown, they're going to have to get into, plan B, C, whatever it might be, as far as the mid-level. A guy who would be a great fit there and could be a possibility is Dante DiVincenzo. However, I think it's more likely that he ends up joining his old buddy and all of our old buddy, Jalen Brunson in New York.
The Villanova Knicks at this point.
Yeah, right. But listen, hey, Josh Hart joining up with Jalen Brunson worked that awfully well. And the fact that Josh Hart opted in, that allowed the Knicks to preserve their full mid-level. And so why would Josh Hart do that? Well, to create space for Dante DiVincenzo. I'll just say that's kind of the theory, the strong theory around the league. And maybe it's a deal where the Mavericks don't spend the full mid-level on one player. Maybe they spend a chunk of it and even save some of it for, whether it's a buyout guy or you can even use it in trades now. Like a guy like a Taurean Prince for at a lower price point would make some sense for the Mavericks. And, we can throw a bunch of darts and go on. But I think you're really looking at those type of things. But obviously, priority number one, they've been very clear about, that's to get Kyrie Irving done. We'll see how simple that is. Maybe it plays out for a little while. Maybe it doesn't.
Tim, before we let you go, I going to circle back to the CBA. It's a huge thing that teams were barely just given their full access to, to dot the T's, cross the T's, dot the I's rather. What's the most notable thing that you got from the release of the full CBA yesterday?
Honestly, and you knew it, but just how punitive it is to be above that second apron in terms of not only handcuffing you, but taking away assets down the road. That's kind of the headliner. But even that first apron, you're going to see deals like the Hawks made with the Jazz, where they just straight up gave away John Collins because they needed to get off that money. I think you're going to see deals like that. It wouldn't surprise me if that's how San Antonio ends up using its cap space. You've always seen teams moving money around, making cost-cutting type of trades, but I think that's going to be more the case than it ever has been.
Tim, as always, my man, I appreciate the time. I had to call my shot one last time, and I appreciate you answering the call for your guy. And I know tomorrow and the next few days is going to be extremely busy for you. If there's anything that you want to drop and let us know before you go, your time is now to do that. Otherwise, happy NBA free agency, sir.
Well, I appreciate it. We will have a fresh Hoop Collective out in the morning, and appreciate you guys plugging that for me.